Has this happened to you? You try and you try, but you just can't get your model to work. It's so frustrating. Well, Ken's here with his how-to to make you a pro in no time.
Hello, Ken Spriggs here with another episode of my how-to series. On this episode, we're going to focus on doing some lighting and some of the techniques that I've learned to help me do that. And in order to pick a subject, I'm continuing on with another ship that I did in a previous how-to video, the 1350 Millennium Falcon that I did the weathering tutorial on. So as I explained in my last video with that, I have a 3D printed set which allows you to light the engine, the cockpit, and the gunner station on top. So I went ahead and worked on that for this kit. Don't think it's too daunting to do lighting. I'm by no means an expert on it. I'm very terrible at doing soldering, so I've given it up. What I do is I just let the companies that provide the parts do the work for me. So I get my lighting from a company called Evans Designs, and they'll even do some custom wiring for you if you want them to, and they're reasonably priced. So so I definitely use them in this build and getting some pre-wired LEDs. So it saves me the trouble from having to worry about doing the rest of it, doing the soldering and making sure it all works. Likewise with the 3D printed parts, it made it much easier for me to be able to put a lit cockpit and the engines and the gunner station with these fantastic parts. And I'll put links in the description below for each of these. So let's go ahead and take a look at it, and I think it turned out really, really great. All right. All right, so I've gone ahead and built a little light box, as it were, for the backlighting for the Millennium Falcon here. And each lighting job that you do, you have to kind of be inventive and creative and come up with something that's going to work for the model that you have, the space that you're working with. So this one's pretty tiny, obviously. So I have to put a little piece right behind these two pegs, right in here, and just light up that back grill, as you can see. And so I got these LEDs as I showed before, and as I showed in my stills, I took just a sheet of thin styrene, and I first drilled out some holes that would match up in the 4 spots that I wanted to put the lights. Then I took an X-Acto knife and I cut them out into be rectangular. And then to keep them in there, I used some square stock, and I made a little frame around it. And then I cut another back piece that was the same size. And then I just sandwiched them in there, as you can see. So these 3 sides are solid. This side allows the wires to go into there. And I may have to reinforce that with some 5-minute epoxy or something like that, but it's pretty cool. So it has all 4 lights in there. So let me go ahead and put a light on that, or a battery on that, and show you what that's going to look like. All right, so it's pretty bright, and it's kind of getting washed out. If I move it back a bit, you're going to see. So I want them to be fairly bright because I want it to look like a one bright strip. I don't want it to have little hot spots. And I'm going to have something diffusing it as well. So basically I made myself a little light strip, as it were. My own LED strip, because I'm not going to get a pre-made light strip to fit into this little area. It's just way too small. So this will work really well. It's pretty cool. And I think those 4 lights are going to be just fine. All right, so let me see about fitting that into the kit and I might have to add a few little pieces on the end of it as well. Okay. All right, so I just have it positioned in there right now behind those two pinholes there. You can see, and that little blue piece right there, that's actually a piece of sprue from one of the Bandai kits that had some of the blue lasers, and I just took the sprue and I bent it. Actually, it took me quite a while. It's pretty fragile, so I just had some really hot water, and I kept dipping it into it to soften it a bit and bending it a little bit more and more. I wanted to make it fit the curve of that, but it just wasn't getting to there. But that might work just fine. And then in front of it, and it's just kind of sitting there, I just have a piece of vellum paper right now to kind of diffuse the light a bit. All right, so let's go ahead and put the top on, and I'm going to see how that looks for now. All right, so that's actually pretty cool. It doesn't wash it out too much from the camera, but you can definitely see the definition of the grills. Maybe just a little bit of hot spots. It doesn't quite look like that. Well, I guess it does a little bit. So I'm going to work on that a little bit and diffuse that a bit more. But that's looking pretty cool for sure, especially for a model that tiny. All right, so I put a little piece of vellum paper on the outside of that. Sorry for the flickering, I'm just holding the battery there. It diffuses that light coming out of the grill a little bit, gives it more of that, try to get it in the dark there we go. More of that like solid glow that you saw in A New Hope in the original Star Wars trilogy. So I'll probably end up going with that because only in the newer ones do you see that really defined grill with the light coming through. So, all right, so I like that pretty well. I'll probably end up just attaching that on the outside of it, and that'll help to clear out any hot spots and give it more of a realistic look. All right, so I'm working on the 3D printed cockpit for the Millennium Falcon, the 1/350 scale, which is right there. And this is a very tiny piece. I have this zoomed in quite a bit. So there's my fingers. The detail on this is unbelievable. So I put a coating of flat black on it. You can kind of see there's the back wall and the door, little seats. All right, so it does have some openings in it. It's kind of hard to see if I can get some light to shine through. You can kind of see there, like the solid lines. There's a little circle at the top left. Plus, the part is clear. You can't tell that now, but I'm going to light it from the back with an SMD and have it connected on or glued on with some 5-minute epoxy. So it'll make like a little mini light box. And then I can scratch off parts of the black paint to expose the light behind it, and then put some little colored clears on it to give it some color to it. So, all right, let me go ahead and do some other tiny little bit of painting, and then we'll see about getting some light on that. All right, so I did some tiny little painting. I don't know if you can see it close enough, but the back door there, I have gray in the center and a little bit of brown on the outside of it. The upper left and upper right panels are kind of a lightest gray. A lot of these you're not really going to see from inside there. I painted the seats kind of a darker and a lighter brown to give it kind of that leather look. I put a little bit of dry brushing of silver on the control panels, but again, just the tiniest bit. And when I say brushing, I'm going to use the brush maybe on the silver, but to do the other parts I had to use a tiny little piece of wire, put some paint onto a piece of cardboard, because there was no way I was going to get a brush that tiny into those little spots. So, all right. So it has a bit of a detail. I put a little bit of silver on the top of the back seats. One of them actually broke off, the one on the left side there, and I had to fiddle with it and get it glued back on, which I did. And again, I just want to see a little bit of like color variations inside of there. Mostly what you're going to see is the back that's lit up. Hopefully I can get some decent light shining through there. So, all right, I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and see about getting a light glued on there. Alright, so I did glue on the SMD onto the back using some 5-minute epoxy. It's kind of hard to get in too close on that. But I just put like a bubble of it and let it self-level. And I let it start to thicken till it got to the consistency of some taffy. And then I stuck the SMD into the end of it. Held it there for a few minutes until it started to hold. And I'm just letting that dry. It's fairly solid now, but I'm just letting it dry on the back there. I may put just a little bit more 5-minute epoxy over top of it in order to fully seal it in there. Let me see if I can get closer to that. Hold on. Come on, focus. Here we go. Alright, yeah, there you go. And the nice thing about the 5-minute epoxy is that it's clear, so it creates its own mask, or not mask, light box. So once that hardens and I have it fully sealed, I'm going to paint that first of all with some white paint, so it'll have the best kind of reflection, and then black over top of it to mask it in. And then that light will come through the front only. And I won't have to worry about masking off any of the inside of the other cockpit corridor because the light won't be shining through. Let me stick a battery on that real quick, and I'll kind of give you a general idea what that's going to look like before I add some more paint to it. All right, there you go. It's kind of hard to get close, as I said. Get it to focus in. But you can see there are lights shining through the back. There's the back of it. It's all lit up. Once I get that painted with some white to reflect it and then black to seal the light in, it's come through the front, so it's going to be brighter. It's really hard to see on the camera, but you can see some tiny little specks coming through. And then I'm going to take some different clear Tamiyas and put some light on, put some colors on there, so it kind of gives it more of that control panel look. So I can focus a little closer. All right, well, let me let that dry, and then we'll go ahead and do some of that as well. All right, and I finished up the painting as the best that I could. So I have the back of it painted in white and then some black. Maybe like one little spot that I have to touch up. And then I put some color into the back of the cockpit. So there's quite a bit of light coming through there, and you can see the horizontal white lights that light it up. A little bit of light coming through the bottom, which is kind of cool. When it gets into the ship, you're going to be able to see it. So something this tiny is really hard to get super good detail when you look really closely at it. But once it's in the ship, you're going to get that impression of the cockpit lights that are in the actual ship. So that's pretty much where I need it to be. So let me go ahead and start getting it fitted into the kit and attached in, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, and I have this put together temporarily in the cockpit in place. The cockpit's glued inside there. So you can see that's pretty sweet. You can definitely see some lights in there and make it out. It does have the image, that iconic image of that cockpit in there. Alright, I really like that a lot. That turned out really well. Alright, and I have the wires coming out of the bottom. I'm just holding them with the battery right now. So they're going to go through a rod that's going to be attached to the diorama that I'm going to build of this. Alright, so the cockpit's all completed. See if I get in there pretty close. So as close as I can get. Alright, the engine's pretty much done. I just have to fashion a piece of the vellum over top of it to make it look more realistic to the version of Star Wars Trilogy: A New Hope, and then I'm going to work on the gunner station, because I have just one of those for the top. So I'm going to see if I can get something lit up in there as well that you can see. All right, and here is the gunner station that's going to go on the top. And as I said, I only have one of them. I'll post a link in this video at the bottom in the description for the Shapeways set that I got. There's actually more than one of them. There was another one that had the top and the bottom. It also had a connecting tunnel that you could light. But I think that one didn't include some other parts that I needed. So the set I went with had the ones that I wanted the most: the cockpit, the rear grill, and one of the stations, one of the gunner stations, because I didn't really need both of them. So I put a piece of white styrene on the back of it to cover the hole that would normally be connecting to the other one, and I painted it black on the inside, and it's on patchy enough that there's a lot of color shining through. Try to get closer. And I painted the little seat inside just silver, and I know it's probably some other colors, but again, you're only going to see just the little image of the seat. So I used some 5-minute epoxy, and I glued two little SMDs onto it. They're called Nano. They're really tiny, and glued one on each side of it, and that should be fine to give it enough light to shine through. And then I put some Tamiya Clears on, and I have several colors: the red, blue, green, yellow, orange, in order to show some color. So let me turn that on, and we'll take a look at that. All right, so you're not going to see that light that's coming from the back, but you're going to see inside there. All right, and a lot of this is going to be obscured within the ship because the window grills in the top are fairly tiny, and the gun's in the way. So you're going to see something, but you're not going to see, that it's not perfect. All right, so let me go ahead and put that in temporarily and take a look at it. All right, there we go. So you can definitely see a lot of light coming through there. And if I move it around, you can see different colors of the light shining through. So it's pretty cool. It definitely gives you the idea of a real gunner station and different detail and different lights in there. So I really like that. That turned out really well. And I think that's pretty well where I need it to be. All right, so I'll work on getting that glued in as well, and then that'll pretty much be all of the lighting for this kit. And then I can start getting the wires coming through the bottom, so I can have them all put together. All right, so I painted some flat black on the back of the gunner station and let that dry, and now I have it glued in. There's a few light leaks. It's no big deal because the inside is black, as you can see, so it's not going to shine through. So I might not even have to touch that up. Now I did decide that I didn't like how bright the lighting was, because it was a little too like a toy or cartoonish. So I took a little bit of gray, made a bit of a wash, just a tiny bit of black in it, and I just washed it on that white part at the back so it would make it dingier and dim it down some. So it's a little bit, it's not quite as bright as it was. There we go. But still quite a lot of light shining through there. And if I angle it at on different sides, you can see some red and some blue and some yellow. Okay, but it's pretty cool. So it definitely gives that impression that there is light in there. And it's actually a gunner station. So, all right, so that is drying. I'm going to go ahead and work a little bit more on the back engine for the diffusing of the light, and then I'll be ready to go ahead and put this together and show off the whole thing. Alright, and here's the finalized wiring inside of the kit on the bottom half of the ship. You can see I have some wires tucked down through the bottom, come out through an aluminum tube that I'm going to have mounting it. The only other wires will be the ones from the gunner station on the top, and they'll go down through there as well. And for the backlighting, I have my homemade strip with the LEDs, 4 LEDs sandwiched in between some white styrene. I have that blue piece of sprue that I curved in there, and then I have a piece of vellum paper. So you can see I have it tacked on both ends so it stays in place, and it's just curved. It doesn't have to match up with the back of it, but it diffuses the light a little bit more, so you don't see the definition of the 4 lights. And then on the back of the engine grill, I tacked on also on both ends another piece of vellum that's the size of the grill. So you'll still see the grill definition, but it won't be quite as obvious as it is in the newer Star Wars movies. You're going to see more of that just kind of a blended together look that you saw in A New Hope in the original trilogy. So let me go ahead and get this all put together, and we'll take a look. So we have the cockpit done, I have the gunner station done, and I have the back engine done. So once I get those wires down through there, I can put the whole thing together, and then we'll wire it onto a battery, and we'll take a look at the finished product. All right. Alright, and there is the kit put together, and I just have a temporary aluminum rod in the bottom, aluminum tube, the wiring coming through it. And let's take a look here. There's my cockpit, looking beautiful. There's my gunner station, looking pretty sweet. And then in the back we got the engine grills lit up. Alright. And I may have a more powerful battery on this. We'll see. Once I get the diorama going, we'll see how that works out. But alright, I think that turned out really, really awesome. I love that a lot. I think that's pretty cool. Alright. So for now, we're going to set this aside. And then the next time we see this, I'll be working on a diorama showing this escaping from Mos Eisley. First time we see it in A New Hope. Alright. Alright, so that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video for this week. As far as this kit is concerned, I just have to do some more weathering on the bottom of it, and then I'm going to work on a little mini diorama of it, showing it taking off from Mos Eisley, from the original Star Wars when we first see the Millennium Falcon. So I'll do a how-to on that here in the future, showing how I'll do that as well, and I have some great ideas for that. So alright, well, thank you to all my subscribers, all my new subscribers, and I will see you next time. Thank you.